Once upon a time, there was a farmer, and his name was Potterton.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's right. I am Potterton.
Potterton lived on a farm in the country, and he had a cat. The cat was called Findus.
Of course my name's Findus. Everyone knows that.
Potterton and Findus lived in a little red farmhouse with a lopsided chimney. The farmhouse had a shed, a woodshed, a hen house, and an outhouse. The farmhouse also had an attic, a long, long attic. And one day, Potterton was up in this attic looking for a bag of fishing floats he knew was there somewhere. As always, Findus the cat was helping Potterton.
It's not here. It's not here either. No, it wasn't under those old plates.
Potterton stopped looking and scratched his head. He couldn't remember where he'd put the fishing floats.
Hey, Potterton, look at this enormous green sausage.
Findus had found a long roll made of green cloth. He jumped on it, and it rolled a bit along the floor. Every time he took a step forward, the long green sausage rolled backwards. When he took a step backwards, the long green sausage rolled forward. When he took several steps, one after the other, the long green sausage started to pick up speed.
Hey, 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 hey! Look, Potterton, look at me!
Potterton looked up from the box he was rummaging through.
Well, well, careful you don't roll down the... Uh-oh.
The long green sausage crashed down the steep attic stairs. Findus went crashing down with it.
Findus? Findus, are you all right? Are you hurt? Yes, I think I have a broken ear. And it's all your fault. You shouldn't keep a dangerous long green sausage in your attic. You should know better at your age. You should put it somewhere safe.
Potterton stroked Findus better. It wasn't long before Findus had perked up again.
That long green sausage is really a tent.
A tent? A tent of what?
A tent is a sort of rolled-up house.
A rolled-up house?
Lots of people have tents. You can sleep in a tent when you're hiking in the mountains.
Sleep when you're hiking? That's crazy. I've heard of sleepwalking, but sleep hiking? Potterton, do me a favor.
You've got it all wrong, Findus. The long green sausage is a bag. And inside the bag, there's a rolled-up tent. Here, let me show you.
Potterton removed the tent from the bag and unrolled it.
Yes.
It had a smell all of its own. A smell of mountains and distant places. It reminded him of all the fun he'd had hiking and camping when he was younger. Maybe he ought to go camping again. And if he did, it would be a good chance to try out his latest invention, an invention so secret he hadn't even told Findus about it. Yet. Potterton began to put the tent together. When it was up, Findus found the flap and crawled inside.
Ooh, well, I'd like to sleep in here. Yeah, it's comfortable and safe. Well, can't we go hiking in the mountains? What are mountains, anyway?
They're very big hills a long way away.
Well, we've got a big hill in the backyard, behind the shed. Let's hike there, can we?
That wouldn't be much of a hike. You can do that in a couple of minutes.
I don't mind. I don't need much of a hike, just a little hike, and then we can go to sleep in the tent.
Ah, but you see, I've got a secret.
A secret?
Yes, it's a new invention, and I want to try it out. So, I suggest we take a walk around to the other side of the lake. On the way, we can put up the tent and do some fishing. And when the sun's going down, we can make a fire and cook the fish we've caught.
Ah, great! Let's go!
Hey, hold on. I've got to get a few things organized first. Life is not quite that simple.
First of all, Potterton had to make a list of everything they had to take with them. The tent, 2 sleeping bags, a backpack, a thermos of coffee, and, most important of all, the invention. Even though it wasn't completely finished. It took a long time for Potterton to figure out everything they'd need, and an even longer time to find it all. Meanwhile, Findus had to wait. He waited impatiently. At last, they were ready to go. Potterton and Findus hiked past the hen house.
Bye, hens! We're going hiking in the mountains, and we're going fishing in the lake, and you can't come.
Why can't we come, eh, Potterton? We want to camp on the lake, too.
Sorry, hens, it can't be done. It's too far for you to walk. You'd only get lost in the woods, and the fox would come and catch you. You'll have to stay at home.
We want to come along.
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We've got to come along.
Potterton began to run. Findus ran with him. But the hens ran fast too. They could run quite fast enough to keep up with Potterton. Further down the path, Farmer Crossman's wife was hoeing her beets. She heard the commotion and saw all the hens chasing after Potterton.
What are you running for, Potterton? You needn't be afraid of hens. They're not dangerous.
Potterton stopped. He felt very foolish, but he knew he had to get the hens back to the hen house, so he turned round and began walking back. The hens followed him, rather doubtfully.
Now where are we going? We're going back again.
Aren't we going hiking?
Come along, Henny, come along now. And all of you others, time for bed. Come on, come on.
Come on, shoo, do as you're told.
It's broad daylight.
Bedtime indeed.
Potterton thinks we're all stupid. If you're going camping on the lake, Potterton, we're coming too.
We are.
You can't change the minds of hens. Once they've made up their minds, that's it. That's what it's going to be.
We'll have to have our hike another day, Findus.
Oh, stupid hens! Stupid! All you're good for is clucking. Cluck, cluck, cluck. What do you know about hiking? You can't even hop. Go on, go and lay eggs. That's all you're good at.
Findus. Let's put the tent up. We can put it up here in the middle of the yard.
This suggestion cheered everybody up straight away. Findus helped Potterton, and the hens watched. At last, the tent was up, and everything was ready. Then Potterton unrolled a sleeping bag, and Findus got in. He looked very pleased.
Oh, this house is just the right size for me. I want to spend the night here.
Good idea.
We'll all spend the night here.
No, not you. Potterton, tell them they can't.
Findus, come outside for a moment, will you?
But all the hens are inside, and it's my tent.
Potterton finally persuaded Findus to come outside where the hens couldn't hear. Then he told Findus about his idea.
The hens will soon get tired of the tent. Meanwhile, we'll go fishing, just you and me. How's that?
Well, so long as I can have my tent back tonight.
You will, I promise. Now, I want to tell you all about my amazing invention. It's called the fishing bow.
On the way to the lake, Potterton explained to Findus how the fishing bow worked. You fixed a hook and a float to an arrow, and then you tied the arrow onto a fishing line, and the fishing line was wound up onto a fishing reel fixed to the bow. You could then shoot the arrow with the hook and float right out into the middle of the lake where the big fish hang out.
Here's your little rod, Findus. I expect you'll catch something. I'm going to shoot over into the reeds. That's where the big fish are. I'm sure of it.
Potterton lifted the fishing bow, fitted the arrow with the float and hook, and shot way out into the reeds. Then he waited. Little waves lapped gently against the rock they were standing on. With his little rod, Findus caught a little fish called a perch. The waves went on lapping. Potterton went on waiting. Findus pulled up one perch after another. Finally, Potterton pulled the arrow in.
Something's wrong here. Findus, you can spare me a perch, can't you?
Oh, sure. I've caught lots of fish. I can easily spare you one. Two, maybe.
One's enough, thank you.
Potterton took the smallest perch and put it on the hook fixed to the arrow. He shot off the arrow towards the reeds, and the moment it hit the water, he had a bite. He saw the tail of a huge fish, and then the water out by the reeds churned up into enormous waves as the fish tried to get off the hook.
A pike! That's a pike! Look, Findus, it's the biggest fish in the lake. It's as big as a seal. Oh.
The fish tugged so heavily on the line, Potterton nearly lost his balance and nearly fell in. Suddenly, the fishing line broke. And this time Potterton really lost his balance and sat down heavily on a pointy rock. There was a long silence as Potterton stared at the rings on the water where the fish had been. Findus forgot the perch that was tugging at his fishing line. He too was staring thoughtfully at the ripples where the enormous fish had been.
Did you see that one? I have never seen such a big fish in all my life.
Let's go back. Can we? I've got more than enough fish. Can we?
On the way home, Findus asked lots of questions about how big a pike could grow and how dangerous they were. Potterton, however, was unusually quiet. He was so busy thinking he could hardly answer. He kept turning back to look at the reeds. But there wasn't a splash to be seen. When they got home, they found the hens were bored stiff with the tent, just as Potterton had thought they would be. Only one of them was still inside. It was Rosie Lee, and she had laid an egg and was sitting on it. Potterton carefully took the egg back to the hen house, and Rosie Lee followed, glad to be back with her friends. Then Potterton made a fire in the yard, and they cooked all the fish that Findus had caught, and they made a pot of tea. It was good pretending to be in the mountains. Findus stretched his nose out to smell the fish cooking, and Potterton leaned back against the apple tree with a sigh of contentment.
Well, well, well. There's nothing like some nicely cooked perch and a cup of tea after a long day's hike in the mountains. Not to my mind.
What's your mind got to do with it?
You see, Findus, I only know the mountains in my mind. I've never been there. We've never had the time. Or the money either. It would have been fun, though.
It began to get dark, and Findus wanted to get into the tent, even though it wasn't really bedtime. He was looking forward to sleeping in a tent so much he couldn't wait.
I know how you feel, Findus. I'll leave you to it. Good night.
Potterton locked up the hen house and went inside to listen to the weather on the radio. Findus was all alone in the tent. Camping was exciting. The light in the tent was very special. A sort of greeny twilight. And the darkness outside was special in a different way. It was almost pitch black now. Things sounded different too. He could hear the soft rustling of the trees, almost as if he were outside. Except that the rustling was clearer, even though it was quieter. In fact, every little sound and noise sounded very, very loud all of a sudden. Because he couldn't see what was making the noises, he lay there trying very, very hard to figure out what each noise was. No matter how hard he stared, all he could see were the sides of a tent. And no matter how hard he listened, he wasn't sure what he was hearing. For instance, he didn't know what a giant pike might sound like, or two of them for that matter, or three. Suddenly, the excitement of being alone in a tent was too much for Findus. He jumped out of the sleeping bag and then ran into the kitchen as fast as his legs would carry him.
What's up with you? Aren't you enjoying camping?
It was great, really great, for a while. But then I started thinking.
And then you got frightened.
Me? Me frightened? No, I just thought that you might be lonely in here on your own, and you might be missing camping. Camping is much more fun when two people do it together.
Just fancy that. I never knew you were scared of the dark. Cats are supposed to be able to see in the dark.
Yeah, but that's just it. Cats also have very good ears, and the problem is, when you're camping, all you can see are the sides of the tent, but your ears hear all sorts of things. Things that you don't know what they look like. So that's why I thought that if you came and sat with me for a while, I wouldn't hear so many noises, and that way camping would be a whole lot more fun.
I see what you mean, Findus. I really do. All right, let's try it for a while and see how it goes.
They went out to the tent. By now it was very, very dark. Findus slipped quickly back into the sleeping bag. Potterton sat down next to him and took his hat off. The tent wasn't very big, though, and he wasn't very comfortable sitting up against the tent pole. So after a while, Potterton lay down on the sleeping bag and Findus crept into Potterton's hat. The tent was silent for a while. Potterton's breathing got slower and his eyes shut more tightly.
You know, we had a lucky escape.
Yes, Findus, I'm listening.
I was gonna say, it was lucky that you didn't pull up that pike. It might have eaten us alive. Next time you go fishing, I don't think I'll come with you.
I don't think you need to worry. I've never seen such a big fish in my life, and I don't think we're ever likely to see one again. No, don't you think you ought to go to...
Before he could say the word, Potterton had fallen asleep. It didn't matter, because when Findus opened his mouth to tell Potterton to finish what he was saying, no words came out. Findus too had fallen asleep, and he stayed asleep with his mouth wide open.
What? What's that? Oh no! It's the pike! Oh, it's the world's biggest pike! And it's coming out of the water! And it's coming over here! Oh no! Oh no, don't let him get me! No! Now he's knocking on the door! Oh no, don't let him come in! Is the door locked? Door? But I'm in a tent! What's going on?
Potterton was still asleep. Findus jumped out of the hat and hid behind Potterton. The tent flap was ever so slightly open, and through the crack Findus could see out.
Potterton! Potterton! Aren't you up yet?
Now that he was awake, he could see that the pike wasn't a pike at all. Farmer Chatterton was at the door of the farmhouse. By now, Farmer Chatterton had realized no one was in the house. So seeing the tent, he came over and put his head through the flap.
For heaven's sake, Potterton, it's 9 o'clock.
Oh, Farmer Chatterton, what a surprise.
I see you're camping. Taking a break, are we? A vacation? In your own backyard?
Potterton was extremely embarrassed to be caught out by his neighbor camping at home. You'd have to be crazy to do that, wouldn't you? He picked his hat up, put it on, and looked Farmer Chatterton in the eye.
It's not what it looks like, really. Well, I'm not camping, it's Findus.
Oh, I see. Well, if I thought you were Findus, I would have patted you on the head. But to me, it looks like you. It's the same hat, anyway.
Farmer Chatterton grinned in a way that made Potterton realize that before the day was over, all the neighbors would know that crazy Potterton had been camping in his own backyard. The thought of Farmer Chatterton chattering and gossiping about him made Potterton very angry.
I know you love to go gossiping to all the neighbors, so you just listen to me, Chatterton, and I'll tell you the whole story. And I can tell you it will amaze you.
I'm sure it will.
We've been hiking up in the Rocky Mountains for a few days, me and Findus.
Me and Potterton.
Well, when we got to Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the tallest mountain in Africa, but I don't expect you to know that. When we got to Kilimanjaro, we were chased by a horde of white wolves.
Yeah, white wolves.
Vicious brutes. And we had to run for it. And we got lost. easily done on a long hike.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we ended up on Dartmoor. And I bet you don't know that's in Britain. And there, we found a lake to fish in.
Big one.
That would have been fine, because Findus caught a lot of salmon, but I caught the Loch Ness Monster. With my bow and arrow.
With his bow and arrow. With your bow and arrow.
That's right. Anyway, I didn't think much of the Loch Ness Monster, so I threw him back.
Too small.
Then we came back home, cooked the salmon.
My salmon.
Very tasty they were, and here we are.
And the tent.
Oh, and the tent. Well, I always fall fast asleep on a full stomach, so Findus, being kind and considerate...
Very kind and considerate.
Being very kind and considerate, Findus must have put the tent up around me while I was asleep. Is that right, Findus?
Well, I don't like to boast, but, well, yep. The cat put the tent up. I see.
Now you know all the details. I hope you'll understand, a man taking a nap in his own backyard.
Well, a man's home is his castle. I just called by to borrow a monkey wrench.
Potterton led the way to the shed. He found the monkey wrench and gave it to Farmer Chatterton.
I'll bring it back tomorrow. Thank you.
You wouldn't like to borrow my tent, too? You should take your family camping. Take your cows, too. They could use a break.
Farmer Chatterton didn't reply, but he had plenty to think about on his way home.
What did you make up all that stuff for?
Well, I figured, as long as he was going to tell stories about me, I might as well give him something to talk about. Camping in your own backyard isn't much of a story, is it?
Hey, I just remembered. We forgot to hike in the mountains.
So we did. Right then, we better be going.
And they had their breakfast on the mountain behind the shed.
Good thinking, Potterton.